where do we think the Zelda series is going to go in the future? Like, what do we think the next Zelda game is going to be, or how do we think Nintendo's going to treat the next Zelda game? Whether it's the next 2D Zelda game or the next big 3D Zelda game like Breath of the Wild. You're negative about the story, which, in my opinion...
It's a subjective thing, you know. Some people might like it.
Yeah, so since they've already had experience with creating this huge open world, they know how to fill it with NPCs, create mountains, dungeons, and everything, so they know how to flesh out the world. So maybe they can take what they've learned with Breath of the Wild, and with whatever their next Zelda game is going to be, they can have the same huge open world, look a bit different or whatever, but maybe since they already have the experience to do that, they can flesh out the story even more, or find an even better way to give you a straight story as opposed to just listening to NPCs or reading what they have to say. So in terms of what they could do in a future Zelda game, or where you think the Zelda series is going to go in the future, what are you hoping for?
It's going to be set in space.
I
mean, it's certainly be interesting, but I gotta say, this is like, it's gonna be very interesting to see, you know, where it's gonna go, because like at Breath of the Wild, I guess, you know, it is known that it's like it breaks the formula.
Yeah.
So the question is now, are they gonna go back to the formula, or are they gonna keep? Are they gonna break them even more, or are they gonna keep what Breath of the Wild did? You know, there's so many ways they could go now.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be very interesting to see. You know, they could. I hope that they expand Breath of the Wild with the DLC, you know, expand that story. And then, you know, for the next game, because they have said that there might be another Zelda game for the Switch. Like, please, Nintendo, if you're watching this,
really
please
quick,
do that.
Because I was covering a lot of the interviews and stuff on my channel whenever Breath of the Wild was releasing. And there was a few statements that during some of the interviews, some people asked about, like, are we going to be, since Breath of the Wild is coming out on the Switch, are we also going to be getting like a 2D Zelda game on the Switch? There was an interview where Aonuma joked about a paper Zelda coming to the Switch, but then obviously I think that was him joking. It may have not been. Yeah. Who knows? They made Yoshi out of yarn in a video game. So Nintendo's crazy enough to actually do a paper Zelda game. But with the 2D game, they said they wanted to do something, a Link Between Worlds, to where it's not just a standard 2D Zelda game. They wanted to evolve what a 2D Zelda game would be. And I think they already did that with the Link Between Worlds, because that was a fully realized 3D world with 3D character models and everything. You could see
that was the first break, I guess, with the dungeons.
Yeah, and you could see that whenever you, like, when a cutscene played, or whenever you went into a wall with the Link Between Worlds, the camera would pan down, and you could see this, even though it played like a 2D Zelda game, it was a fully 3D Zelda game. The camera was just looking down on top of you. So they kind of already did a game that evolved what a 2D Zelda game was. And I was playing Breath of the Wild, and after I was thinking about that interview, if you pan the camera all the way up to where it's facing down, it looks almost like A Link Between Worlds did, but obviously in the style of Breath of the Wild, to where it is that it looks like a top-down 2D Zelda game, but built with 3D models and stuff. So that was very interesting to see. And something else in an interview, and again, sorry, we can go back to what you're saying.
No, keep going. It's giving me, you know, good thoughts and good information. Keep going.
So that's everything that I can remember that they've said about the future of the 2D Zelda games. But with the 3D Zelda games, they said that they wanted to take what they've learned from Triforce Heroes, which was probably the most successful multiplayer Zelda game they've made, and apply that to what they've learned with Breath of the Wild. So that makes me think like a multiplayer style Zelda game that may or may not look like Breath of the Wild. And that's if you take what Aonuma said as pure truth, because it may just be something that he would like to do, not necessarily what they're going to do, because he could have an ideal, but ultimately the higher ups at Nintendo could be like, well, multiplayer Zelda games don't sell that well, Breath of the Wild did, so do something like that. So it's not necessarily up to Aonuma on what type of Zelda game that he makes. But I just wanted to mention that for the people that are listening, so they know maybe what to expect. And I didn't know if you knew about any of that, so you could kind of add it in.
I had no idea actually.
Yeah, so you could add it in to like what your hopes are for the next Zelda games.
To add to that like whole statement, it would. Someone actually brought up a point while I was streaming today that they'd really like to see co-op or PvP in Breath of the Wild. Well, I don't know about co-op. I would like, Breath of the Wild already. I can sort of tell that it took some inspirations from like Dark Souls, for example, especially with not the hand holding, not really holding your hand that very much. The combat, especially, like it sort of has some of the stuff that Dark Souls has, some of the same strategies and everything. And I think like a dueling mode in Breath of the Wild, like a PvP dueling mode, would actually be really cool. And for like a future installment, I think it would be really cool to have. It could have multiplayer. It's like a multiplayer RPG game. While it would it is sort of breaking the conventions. It could be very interesting if they do it right. I'm like on the fence if I'd like something like that, but I definitely think they're gonna go with a 3D Zelda game. Nintendo are still saying that they're gonna support the 3DS and stuff. I don't think they should. I think they should kill that thing and just go with the Switch. But
yeah, because with what you just said, sorry to interrupt, but
this is fine.
Really quick, I think it would be interesting with the 3DS. We've seen like A Link Between Worlds, Majora's Mask 3D, Ocarina of Time 3D, and those are what the 3DS is capable of. Like, A Link Between Worlds, you probably couldn't make a Zelda game look much better than that, or a lot better. So with the Nintendo Switch, you have the power to create this huge open world like Breath of the Wild. So imagine what you would be able to do if you took that hardware and just made a 2D Zelda game. You would basically have no limitations on what you would need to do, because if you make a big open world game like Breath of the Wild, you might do something which we've already seen in Korok Forest specifically. There's a lot of slowdown and stuff. So there could have been something where they're like, oh, we would have liked to do this, but we weren't able to because the frame rate dropped to like 5 frames a second. So we took it out, and but with the 2D Zelda game, you're not necessarily held back by those limitations, because you could potentially, but I don't think you're realistically going to make a 2D Zelda game that uses more than what the Nintendo Switch is able to put out in terms of power.
I agree with that. I agree with that for sure.
You may be able to make a 2D Zelda game that is limited by the 3DS, but with the Nintendo Switch, which is vastly more powerful, I don't think you're going to have those limitations. So it would be interesting to see what kind of crazy concepts they would be able to come up with without being held back in any way.
Yeah, you know what? it sounds like a great idea. Like I'm all for that. I'm all for a 2D Zelda game like on the Switch. It's just the thing is with me, I think right now after the Wii U, which was great games, but catastrophe in terms of sales.
Yes.
I think they're gonna go with what sells right now, and I think Breath of the Wild, the way it looks, the way it plays, and like a 3D RPG like that, it sells. And when people look at 2D, they're like, oh, Nintendo's gonna go back to their old days. They never learn. People always say that. The idea you just put out is great. I would like no limits, just a 2D Zelda game, go crazy. I would absolutely love it, and I don't mind if they do that.
Yeah.
But if I'm gonna be sort of realistic, I think they're still gonna go with the 3D. What they do with that is up to them, and it's very hard for me to say. But I think that's where they're gonna move. I think they're gonna either keep going with what Breath of the Wild had, maybe even a direct sequel. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I don't think we're gonna be getting like a 2D Zelda game. I hope maybe we'll get 3 Zelda games on the Switch. I'd love that. But yeah, realistically, I think that we're gonna get like some sort of at least a spiritual sequel to Breath of the Wild with sort of the same, just build upon that, like you said, with the whole Loft Wings. I feel like, Loft Wings weren't needed in Breath of the Wild for me. I don't feel like I enjoy going on foot, exploring the world, going on horse or something, but it gave me just some thoughts, like, imagine just having like a fully explorable sky world as well. They could open up the world even more and more possibilities with like a sequel to Breath of the Wild. And it's a very tough thing to sort of pin down on where they might want to go with this, because just Breath of the Wild in itself is, I could never see Zelda going this way. I could never see the freedom that we're presented with in Breath of the Wild. I never expected that type of freedom. So Nintendo, they always surprise with things. But just please don't set it in space. I don't think that's going to work. So don't take my idea on that.
Did you see the concept art to where...
Yes, I did actually. That's why I said it. Yeah, I did see that.
At first, it did remind me about, maybe like if they would have went in a space direction, that would have sucked. But then I started thinking maybe this is just a reference to Majora's Mask.
Oh yeah,
where
the cattle.
Yeah, the aliens come and then take all of the cows away or whatever. So in my head, I was like, maybe that was just a reference to where, like, how they have the blood moon. Maybe there's just one specific night that they come and take the cattle away from, like, a certain village or something. That would be interesting. But if it was, like, a full-on space Zelda game, I don't know how I would have felt about that.
Yeah, it's like sort of, I think people would be very divided on that. I mean, if they're confident enough with that that setting, then sure. I'd like it to stay where it is right now.
All right,
but yeah, I'm pretty sure it's gonna go with the 3D direction. Gonna keep what Breath of the Wild already had, because I mean, everyone's talking about Breath of the Wild still. It's still a very hot topic, and I think they, if they stop with their copyright stuff on YouTube, they're gonna have a very good product. So I think it's gonna move into that.
Yeah. All right. So you said that you're wanting the next Zelda game to be another big Zelda game like Breath of the Wild. So
yeah, that's where I'm gonna go.
If you could pick whether it was a direct sequel to say Twilight Princess, Wind Waker's already had one, but say it's a direct sequel to Twilight Princess, Minish Cap, Skyward Sword, whatever, would you want it to be a sequel to a game that already exists? Whether, even if it's Breath of the Wild, like, would you want it to be how Phantom Hourglass is to the Wind Waker, or Majora's Mask is to Ocarina of Time, to where they just literally continue the story from where it left off? Or would you like to see a brand new Zelda game?
Well, since I said
since
I said all the stuff about the story before, if the DLC doesn't expand upon the story, which I really hope it does, because it sort of feels like that from the ending, I'd like to see it. I'm sort of 50-50 on this. To me, I could definitely see a direct sequel to Breath of the Wild. Continuing the story with the same Link even. I wouldn't want it to go like, let's say, Phantom Hourglass and just be like touchscreen. I'd like them to keep that same, sort of 3D. But at the same time, thinking about it in my head, it feels off having like a sequel that sort of is almost the same. But I mean, I guess you can look at Majora's Mask. That game is still vastly different from Ocarina of Time. So if they did something like that, I'd be okay with it. But I mean, I guess I guess I sort of prefer the idea of just a completely new Zelda game, but sort of keeping the Breath of the Wild feeling intact.
Yeah, like all of the gameplay mechanics.
Yeah, the freedom especially, that. But I'd like to know more about the world in Breath of the Wild. So, like I said, I'm 50-50 on that. I don't think I can make up my mind on that.
Yeah, personally, what I think would be amazing, and I thought this before Breath of the Wild came out, like after I played Twilight Princess for the first time, which was like 10 years ago when it came out. I thought it would be interesting if they did similar to how when Ocarina of Time ended, they made Majora's Mask, which is the same Link but in a different world. I would like them to do that. As I said with Twilight Princess, I thought that would have been a cool idea to see that version of Link to go to Termina, and you have an adult Link now in Termina how has it changed? Because we
revisit that.
Yeah, we see how from Ocarina of Time to Twilight Princess, we see how the story, the different towns, villages, and everything has changed from Ocarina of Time to Twilight Princess. So what would it look like if those hundreds of years passed between Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess? Like, how would Termina be different? And I think the same concept still applies with Breath of the Wild. In Breath of the Wild, like, you know, in Twilight Princess, you're talking a few hundred years. But in Breath of the Wild, they say, like, the robots and everything were built 10,000 years.
Yeah.
So what would Termina look like on the scale of Breath of the Wild? Like, you see how small, which it was big at the time, Hyrule is in Ocarina of Time. You see how big or small Termina is in Majora's Mask.
Yeah.
But with the Nintendo Switch or the Wii U, if you look at the scale of Hyrule and Breath of the Wild, what would a Termina look like on that scale? And how would the different areas have changed? What would Clocktown look like? Because if you still have the city in the middle of the map, imagine like the scale of that city and how huge it would be. So
yeah, that's an interesting idea. Like, just they're free to go wherever they want right now. Basically, they can go wherever they want. I like that. That's a unique idea. I don't think I've ever heard that before. Something to note as well, I guess, just a final point. I know we've already been talking for so long, but I wanted to bring up one last thing. I saw on Reddit someone point out that pretty much every Zelda game always, or most Zelda games, reference something, an item in the game. Like, you know, Ocarina of Time, it's the Ocarina.
Yeah.
Wind Waker, it's the Wind Waker. Breath of the Wild, it's not an item. Like, it's, you know, the wild, Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
So I feel like, you know, they could do so much with the next title. There's, you know, I don't know. It's just so hard to pinpoint. But I really like, you know, all we can do is theorize. But I really like that idea. You know, revisiting a location could be fun, but going to a new one would work as well.
Yeah, like if they created a completely different world to explore that's not Hyrule, that's not Termina.
Yeah, exactly. Not Hyrule. That would be cool as well. I'd love that.
Oh, were you meaning like a different version of Hyrule, or
no? What you said just now is the thought just popped into my head as well. Like a completely new land would be great as well.
All right, so to end it off here, in the past, Nintendo has really been pushing out Zelda remakes. Like we had, you could realistically say that with the Wii U until Breath of the Wild was released, neither the Wii U or the 3DS had a traditional new Zelda game. A Link Between Worlds would have been the closest, but just listen to this. If I can remember all of the games. We had Ocarina of Time 3D, Majora's Mask 3D, both obviously remakes. Wind Waker HD, obviously remade. Twilight Princess HD, a remake. Hyrule Warriors, not a traditional Zelda game. We had A Link Between Worlds, which began with them wanting to do a remake of A Link to the Past, but then ended up turning it into a sequel. So I look at it as more of a reimagining of A Link to the Past.
Spiritual sequel, pretty much.
And then Triforce Heroes was
multiplayer.
Yeah, it was a multiplayer Zelda game, not necessarily a traditional Zelda game. So with the 3DS and the Wii U, you had 6, maybe 7 different Zelda games, but none of them were an original traditional Zelda game until Breath of the Wild released on the Wii U. So seeing as they did so many remakes or reimaginings with A Link Between Worlds, if they were to remake a Zelda game for the Nintendo Switch, whether it was a 2D game or a 3D game, and even if they took a 2D game and made it into a 3D game, what would you want to see, like the one game? Because what I always think of is next year is 2018. Ocarina of Time already has a remake on the 3DS, but it's limited to 480p. It looks better, but not compared to modern games. So for Ocarina of Time's 20th anniversary, I thought it would be a really good idea, especially if you've seen the Unreal.
Yeah, I've seen Cryogenics.
Yeah, like the
I know him, so yeah, I've seen it.
The Unreal Engine 4 remake of Ocarina of Time, and that's done by a fan. So imagine like Nintendo's team of hundreds of people working on an actual remake for Ocarina of Time. I think that would be perfect for the 20th anniversary, which, it'll probably take them a few years to release whatever the next big Zelda game is, and remakes can usually be done kind of fast. So to have something in that gap between Breath of the Wild and whatever the next big Zelda game is to celebrate Ocarina of Time's 20th anniversary, I think that would be an easy way for them to quickly put something out that fans would actually want.
I you know what, that's a perfectly valid point to me. I definitely think that could definitely happen. I'd like it, like just thinking about it, just like with really updated visuals. Yes, I'm sold. The Switch already, GameCube Virtual Console, for example, like just having all like your old games as well on the Switch on the go, Ocarina of Time, just fully reimagined. I'd like it. I mean, I don't really know, because it's hard to. I don't know if people re-release games multiple times, but yeah, I'm all for that. So I'd be down for that for sure. It sounds like
even if it was like we've heard rumors before the Switch release that they were going to release Pokemon Stars, which was like the third version of Sun and Moon for the Switch. So they're basically porting that game over to the Switch. If they ported over Ocarina of Time 3D to the Switch, like literally the exact same game, but just allowed it to render in HD, kind of how the emulator, if you play Ocarina of Time 3D on there, you can render it in 1080p. If they just did that to where it was just porting the game over, I think that would be something, it wouldn't take long at all to do, and it would be a lot of sales that they would have. So
I think like the 3DS was sold a lot, so I don't know. I'd rather have them fully like what they did with Wind Waker HD. I think if they like, or even more, fully remodeled everything again for a new Ocarina of Time game.
Yeah.
I think, like you said, it's 20th anniversary now. It would be a perfect contrast to Breath of the Wild as well. And I don't know. I think that would be really nice. I hope they'll do something like that. It would be. I think people that love Ocarina of Time would also appreciate a celebration like that. So I'd like it, but
all right.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
All right,
for sure.
Well, we've been going on for about a little over an hour, and I want to thank everybody that's stayed and listened to all of this. I may actually end up separating each of the topics into its own video, so 3 different topics. But for those that are interested, again, where can they find you on Twitter? Where can they find you on YouTube? What kind of content videos do you upload? Go ahead and let them know so they know where to find you.
I'm Gehab at Mr. Gehab on Twitter. If you want to go follow me there, I interact with loads of people, so seriously, write me anything and 99% I'm going to respond to it. I'm also on YouTube, of course, Gehab, youtube.com/usergehab. Check me out. I do mostly comedy stuff. I do just creative, spontaneous videos, very high quality. I always put quality into editing and everything, so that's where you're going to find me. So make sure to go check me out. Hopefully I'm linked in the description. That'd be nice. But make sure to go check me out if you have the time. Thank you so much for having me, Jesse. This was a lot of fun. I very much enjoyed this discussion.
I had a lot of fun too. Just talking about Zelda, for me, I can go on for hours. This is supposed to be a lot shorter, but we lost track of time. So thank you for coming on, and I will have everything linked to your Twitter, to your YouTube in the description below. So thank you, everybody, for watching. Go give Gehab a follow, watch some of his videos, and then let him know what you think about it on his Twitter. Bye, everybody.
Yes. Bye-bye.
What's up, everybody? Really quick before we get to the usual end slate, I wanted to mention a quick update for this channel. I'm trying to bring together a few new series other than the usual discussions and news videos that we do. I would like to bring quality reviews, let's plays, do more live streams, a top 10 series, and more analysis videos. However, to do this, I need your help. Between being a new father, YouTube, and my real job, I don't have the time to work on all of these videos. So I would like to bring on other people who can help out from time to time, like Sasizi and others who have helped host and edit videos before. before. To make this all happen and to get awesome rewards for yourself, head over to patreon.com/GameOverJesse, where you can get shoutouts and videos, join our group Discord and chat with us whenever you want, be a guest on some of our videos, and much more. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. I would like to give a huge thank you to this month's Patreons for their support: George Martinez, Glenn Cassio, Hen Hutinen, Lunarium, Magic Tech Review, The Itch Network, and Harris Priest. Thank you all for everything, and it's because of your support that I'm able to find the time to do these videos. If you would also like to support this channel, head over to patreon.com/GameOverJesse, where you can find all kinds of great rewards like joining on a video, being added onto our Discord chat, having your discussion or topic featured on one of our videos, and much more, including having your own custom artwork similar to my own, drawn of you in any anime or video game style you would like. Finally, I would like to give a huge thank you to Gnomo Designs and CS Guitar 89 for providing the music and artwork for this channel.